Hi, I'm Sonja Petek, a survey project manager at the Public Policy Institute of California. Today I'd like to present some of the findings from our recent public opinion survey on Californians and education. Before I begin, I'd like to provide a bit of background information about the survey. This survey focuses specifically on K-12 public education and is the 8th annual survey we've conducted on this topic since 2005. Interviews were conducted from April 3rd through April 10th with about 2,000 California adults interviewed by telephone, both landline and cell phone, and in English and Spanish. We are very grateful to the Dirk and Charlene Cabsinel Foundation, the Stewart Foundation, and the Silver Giving Foundation for their support of this survey. California has the largest public school system in the country. It serves a highly diverse student body of over 6 million students. Nearly a quarter of these are English learners. K-12 public education is the state's largest area of spending, and it's the area that Californians consistently rank in our surveys, including this survey, as the area of state spending that they most want to protect from spending cuts. In this protracted economic downturn, schools have had to deal with shrinking budgets in a number of different ways, from laying off teachers to staff furloughs, cutting programs, reducing the number of days of instruction. And Governor Brown this year has made public education front and center in his 2012-13 budget proposal. Part of the proposal is a tax initiative on the November ballot that would temporarily raise income taxes on California's top earners and temporarily raise the state sales tax. If voters defeat the measure, Governor Brown's proposal calls for automatic or trigger cuts to California's K-12 public schools. So what do Californians think about all of this? I'd like to talk about 6 of the key findings from our survey. First, we find that among those respondents we consider likely to vote, a slim majority, 54%, say they would vote yes on the governor's proposed tax initiative, and a strong majority are opposed to the trigger cuts that would happen as a result of voters defeating the measure. Voters are deeply divided along party lines on the governor's proposed tax initiative, while there is mutual opposition to the trigger cuts that could happen as a result of the measure being defeated by voters. In light of the priority that Californians place on K-12 public education, what would they be willing to do to raise revenues for K-12 public schools? We asked separately about some specific ways to raise taxes, 2 of which are components of the governor's proposed initiative. We only find majority support among likely voters for the idea of raising taxes on the state's wealthiest residents. They are less keen on the idea of raising the state sales tax, which is the other tax included in the governor's initiative. The least popular idea, and one that is not part of the governor's initiative, is the idea of raising state personal income taxes overall. Strong majorities of likely voters say that the state budget situation is a big problem for California's public schools, and they say that state funding for their local public schools is not enough, but they only express lukewarm support for 2 of the ways that local districts can raise revenues. If there were a school bond measure on the ballot, 53% of likely voters say they would vote yes, which is just shy of the 55% vote required to pass a school bond. If there were a parcel tax on their local ballot to raise revenues for local schools, only 51% of likely voters say they would vote yes, but this falls far short of the 2/3 vote required to pass this type of tax. Despite expressing serious concerns about schools laying off teachers and shortening the school year, part of the hesitancy to raise taxes could be a result of views that money alone won't significantly improve educational quality in California. We find 2/3 of likely voters say that educational quality is a big problem, but most say that schools either need to use the money that they have more wisely, or that they need additional funding and they need to use the money more wisely. Fewer than 1 in 10 say that additional funding alone would significantly improve educational quality. We asked about 2 reforms that are currently under discussion. One would advance the governor's goal of realigning certain state responsibilities to the local level by giving school districts more flexibility over how they spend state funds. Likely voters are very much in favor of this idea, and most express at least some confidence that their local school districts could spend this money wisely. There are more mixed views of the other reform that is currently under discussion. This reform would change the way that school districts receive funding from the state, basing it on the types of students that they have, targeting the funding to school districts that have more low-income students and English learners. Just over half of likely voters support the idea of giving school districts that have more low-income students additional funding, but they are less supportive of the idea of giving school districts that have more English learners additional funding. Finally, I wanted to mention some findings among public school parents in our survey. The vast majority of public school parents say that their child's public school has been affected, either a lot or somewhat, by recent state budget cuts, and most are very concerned about this school laying off teachers. But there are some stark differences in the level of concern about teacher layoffs, with lower-income parents and Latino parents far more likely than others to say they are very concerned. I'd like to thank you for listening today. The full report with all the questions and some interactive tools to run your own findings can be found at our website, ppic.org.